Now let's look at more proofs with CPCTC number 4. Again, we will start off by writing our given. Angle C is congruent to angle E. B is the midpoint of segment AD. And again, this P should have been parallel bars. Segment BC is parallel to segment DE. All of these are given to us. We'll be ready for step 2. First, we'll mark our figure with our givens. Angle C is congruent to angle E. B is the midpoint. So I'll come back to that. I know that BC segment and line, obviously, are parallel to DE segment and line. Let's look at that second given. B is the midpoint of segment AD. I can't identify B as a midpoint, but I can use the definition of midpoint to state that segment BD must be congruent to segment BA if B is the midpoint. So my first brainstorming, segment BD is congruent to segment BA. Now we're trying to prove that angle BAC is congruent to angle DBE. Looks like corresponding parts of two different triangles, so we probably need to go through and prove that these two triangles are congruent first. So we'll need to use a congruency shortcut. Now let's look at this one. It's a little more involved. Let's go through and start building our brainstorming knowledge. Really quick, this first statement we made was definition based on the definition of midpoint. That was our reason. Maybe we need it, maybe we don't, so we'll just keep writing things down. If I look at these, I have a side. Corresponding sides are already congruent. I have corresponding angles are already congruent. Let's see if I can find another corresponding pair of items here that will help me out, corresponding parts. Can I make a statement about angle A and angle B? I don't have anything to relate angle A and angle B. I don't have really anything to relate the other sides either. But here's what I do know, is that this segment BC is parallel to segment DE. So I may be able to use some transversal knowledge. Now it's a true statement. If I look at it, the first thing that wants to jump out at me is here's a transversal and here are alternate interior angles. I will agree that we can make this statement right here. And now we know that these three angles are congruent. But I would challenge you, I don't really think it's going to help us out very much. It's outside of the triangles that we're talking about, and there's no way to really connect it back to the angles that are on the inside easily. So let's keep going and look for other angles. What about, we already talked about angle A and B we can't really do, but do these parallel lines help us do anything else? Yes. If I look, if I can, in my mind, if I could remove this for a moment, and I could see that here's another transversal. On this transversal AD, on transversal AD, I have angle ABC is corresponding with angle BDE. So now I have one side, an angle, and another angle. And I can make the statement then that those triangles are congruent. So let's write down what we've discovered here. Angle ABC is congruent to angle BDE because they are corresponding angles, and corresponding angles are congruent. We also have that side angle side will allow me to say that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle BDE, because we have side, I misspoke, I apologize, side angle angle. We have a side, an angle, and an angle. Side, angle, and an angle. We have a side, an angle, and an angle. That is a congruency shortcut. SA is a congruency shortcut, side, angle, angle. I can then state that these two triangles are congruent. And once I have that statement done, I can start to state that all the corresponding parts of these triangles are also congruent. So I could write things about segments and angles, but what I'm really trying to prove is angle BAC is congruent to angle DBE, and they are corresponding. So I know that angle BAC will be congruent to angle DBE, because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are also congruent. Now I just need to put all of my statements here into my proof. Now again, I was able to make the statement. Remember, I did make the statement that angle EBC is congruent to angle BED. True statement, but I'm not going to include it because it's not going to help me. And I made that because alternate interior angles. But again, I'm not going to use this angle in my proof statement. It's not going to get me where I want to go. Maybe there's a way that you could do it, but we're not going to use it. So I do need to have that these two segments, BD and BA, are congruent. I do need to know that those corresponding angles are congruent. I need to include all of these statements. I need to know the triangles are congruent, and that will lead me to my final statement here. So as I continue to write in my proof, now I know that segment BD is congruent to segment BA. I know that because of the definition of midpoint. I know that angle ABC is congruent to angle BDE because they are corresponding angles, and corresponding angles are congruent when the two lines the transversal cuts through are parallel, and in this case they are. Now I can state, I have enough information now to state that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle BDE. We can state that by using side, angle, angle. Where did that information come from? Well, the side comes from step 2. We said that these two sides or segments are congruent to each other. The first angle comes from, one angle rather, will come from step 3, those corresponding angles, angle ABC and angle BDE. And the other angle comes from our given in step 1, angle C and angle E. Carry my line down a little bit. Once I know that to be true, I can go ahead and make comments about the corresponding parts of the triangles. I could say that angle BAC is congruent to angle DBE because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And that completes my proof.